Imagine your HOA cutting my power on a Sunday and giving me 48 hours to comply. Or lose everything. I'm Jordan Reyes, 33. Paramedic. The oldest of 3. And the full-time caretaker for my mom, Elena. She's got COPD and needs an oxygen concentrator when she sleeps. We moved into Larkspur Bluffs last spring because it looked quiet and decent and, hopeful. The brochure had golden retrievers, a cul-de-sac sunset, kids flying a red kite. They forgot to include Karen. Karen Whitmore, HOA president. Pearl button polos. Sunglasses that live on her head like a second pair of eyebrows. The kind of smile that never reaches her eyes. The morning the U-Haul pulled up, I set a temporary plywood ramp on the porch so Mom could get inside without doing some circus act on 3 steps. Karen glided over with a tablet like a ticket scanner. "That," she said, pointing her stylus at the ramp, "is not compliant with our community aesthetic." "I've got a city permit in process," I said, holding up a stamped application from 2 days earlier. "It's for a permanent ramp." Karen's voice clicked like ice cubes in a glass. The HOA rules supersede whatever the city thinks is fashionable. She tapped her watch. "Remove it by Friday at 3 o'clock. I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. So I rebuilt the ramp better. Pressure-treated lumber. Gentle slope. Side rails. I measured the rise and run like I was cramming for an exam. Printed the ADA technical sheet and slid it into a blue folder labeled "Just in Case." Mom told me I was overdoing it. "Mio," she said, "some fights ain't worth starting." I kissed her forehead. "Sometimes they start without you, Ma." The first notice showed up taped to our door in bubble letter font. Violation, unapproved structure. $100. Due in 10 days. The second violation, visible medical device. Because for 2 nights, while I rerouted an outlet, we snaked the concentrator tubing through the bedroom window. Another 100. The third said our mailbox was 1 inch too tall. I measured. It wasn't. Still. The fine stood. Receipts. Drop 1. I emailed Karen a PDF Stack City application with timestamp, contractor quotes, and a letter from Mom's pulmonologist stating the ramp was medically necessary. CC'd the board's general inbox and, for good measure, the city accessibility coordinator. My tone was polite, boring, and precise. Her reply came in 20 minutes. Per Section 7. Emergency powers allow the board to abate hazards. Hazard. My mom's ramp. Cool. Tuesday morning. I got home from a 12-hour shift smelling like diesel and antiseptic. There was yellow tape across my porch. Not police tape. HOA tape. Unsafe structure access. Restricted. A fat silver padlock hugged the bottom rail. Mom sat inside at the kitchen table, both hands over her phone like she was praying with it. "Did you go out?" I asked. She shook her head. "Asha helped me through the side yard. Almost fell. I cut the padlock with the bolt cutter I keep for work things, and set the lock on a coaster. Evidence." I told Mom, "Drink water." Then I pulled our doorbell footage. Ring video Karen at 9:50 a.m. Flanked by 2 dudes in navy polos with patches that said compliance, no city seal, no license number. One took measurements with a tape while Karen narrated into her phone. Unsafe slope. Possible fraud claim. Fraud. I labeled the clip Ring 1 and put it on a thumb drive. Receipts. Drop 2 certified letter demanding removal of the sticker and reimbursement for the lock, citing state statute on interfering with accessibility features and trespass. I asked, very calmly, which vendor the board had hired. The letter came back unsigned. Karen sent an email instead. We consider this matter closed. Subsequent non-compliance will attract penalties. The way she wrote attract made it feel like mosquitoes love me. By Friday, Karen's people escalated. Asha, 17. Pre-med brain. Next door Saint texted that someone crouched behind our fence, snapping photos of my truck. I caught him on Mom's old Android Navy Polo. Square-lensed camera that looked like a tiny toaster. A plate reader. Inakuldesak. Receipts. Drop 3. I called the city code line about unlicensed security and possible ALPR use. Sent another email to the board asking whether they'd voted on surveillance. Karen replied in 3 minutes. Neighborhood watch equipment is not an HOA matter. Which is brack. A weird thing to say when the polos wear your logo. The fines started doubling. 100 became 200. Then 400. New ones landed like sleet. Improper window coverings. Because Mom likes lace. Non-uniform lawn color. Because a strip by the curb went brown in the July heat. Unauthorized vehicle. Because my paramedic truck has light bars and a lockbox. I kept paying my mortgage. I did not pay a dime to the HOA. Maybe that was stubborn. Maybe dumb. The rules wasn't clear, sorry. Weren't clear. When the letters didn't work, Karen went for the jugular. A bright white envelope slid under our door. Final notice. Utilities review scheduled. Utilities. Not HOA. My stomach dropped into my socks. Next morning, the bedside lamp wouldn't turn on. The concentrator beeped like a smoke alarm, having a panic attack. The air in the house was too quiet. Like the hum was missing. Electricity has a sound, and I didn't notice till it died. Breaker box. Fine. Outside, the meter panel for our townhome cluster hung ajar with a little red plastic seal. Clicking the main lever down. Not from the utility. I called the power company. Breathless. The rep checked. No work order. Sir. Somebody tampered with your service. Call the police. Officer Tran came by. Took photos. Read my emails. Watched the ring footage. I can write a report for vandalism and interfering with utility service, he said. But we need a person to charge. Karen, I said. Or her hired clowns. He gave me that tired cop look, sympathetic. Stuck. We'll keep it open. He stood guard while I unlatched the panel and flipped the lever. When the concentrator hummed and Mom exhaled, man. I ain't ashamed, I cried. Receipts? Drop 4. I emailed the board, the police report number, utility call log, and a screenshot of our medical equipment alert. Wrote one line. Touch this meter again, and my next email is to a lawyer. Then came the smear. Posts popped up on the community app, new residents gaming the system. Commercial vehicle clutter. Why our property values are dropping. Someone uploaded a photo of my truck with the little blue EMS star decal and wrote, "Not appropriate for family community." Another posted a zoom shot of my mom in her robe cropped so you couldn't see the oxygen tube captioned, "Standards matter." It made my hands shake. I flagged the posts. The platform removed the worst ones, but damage lingers. A jogger yelled, "Follow the rules," in that voice people get when they're performing for an invisible camera. An anonymous letter hit our mailbox. If you can't handle standards, Move back to where you came from. We moved from 6 miles away, but I got the message. Saturday morning, 8:30. 2 SUVs crawled onto our street with amber lights blinking. The Polos and a new guy with a clipboard thick as a dictionary stepped out. Karen arrived last in tennis whites, like she'd just won a trophy she engraved herself. "Jordan," she sang, "we're here for a safety walk. You're trespassing if you step on my porch." I said, "You're committing a felony if you touch my meter." I held my phone up. "You're being recorded." Karen smiled at the lens like it was a fundraiser. "Arrest me," she said. "Go ahead." They left. But not before sliding a new fine under my windshield wiper. Improper flag. The flag. The tiny EMS decal. These people were allergic to oxygen and kindness. Receipts. Drop 5. I compiled a 10-minute video. Ring angles. The yellow tape. The red seal. The pile of fines spreading like a card trick across the table. The ADA sheet. The certified letter returned unopened. Sent it to the board. The city ADA coordinator. And Councilwoman Denise Shore, who campaigned on accountability. She replied, "We've received similar complaints. City hearing 2 Thursdays from now. 5 p.m. Can you attend?" You better believe I could. The clock got loud after that. 2 weeks. Karen smelled it and hit level 2 like a runner grabbing the last lap. She announced a community emergency session for Monday at 6 p.m. No agenda. No notice. When I asked to place the ramp on the docket, the board secretary replied, "Items must be submitted 7 days in advance." It was Friday. Cute. So I prepped my own meeting. I edited video till my eyes burned. Printed bylaws on bright yellow paper with highlights so neon you could see them from space. Pulled county property records. That's when I found it. Larkspur Lane, the street she kept declaring private, was dedicated to the city 15 years ago. The HOA had zero authority to cite or tow on it. Receipts. Drop 6 county clerk deed record. Crisp black ink. Dedication language circled like a treasure map. Monday evening. I didn't go to Karen's emergency session. I set my projector on my driveway. Asha's dad rolled out 2 folding tables. Councilwoman Shore sent her aide. Maya. Officer Tran showed up on dinner break. Uniform shirt, unbuttoned at the top. "Just a neighbor," he said. Neighbors trickled in, some curious, some skeptical, some ready for popcorn. Mom sat in her folding chair with a blanket over her knees and lipstick on. "Make it clean," she whispered. No yelling. I took a breath and hit play. First slide, a boring timeline. Dates written in words. Fines listed in words. No math to confuse anyone. Then the video, Karen's parade at the ramp. The sticker. Padlock. The red meter seal. My call log. When the clip ended, the state statute filled the garage door. Interference with utility service, a felony. Then the ADA text. Then the county deed. Karen arrived mid-slide, flanked by 2 board members and her Polo twins. She tried to stand in the projector beam. Asha tugged the stand a foot left. The words washed across Karen's shoulder like someone doing karaoke to consequences. "You can't show private emails," she snapped. "I'm showing laws and your actions," I said. "Both are public." I tapped the deed. "Also, that street, public. Your tickets are confetti." Mrs. Nguyen, from 3 doors down, did a tiny laugh that released tension like a valve. Karen called the sheriff on speaker. "There's a man inciting a riot." she announced. Aisha's little brother drew chalk rockets under the mailbox. While she waited for the cruiser, she did something I didn't expect. She walked to my projector table, yanked the HDMI cable, and pocketed it like a magician stealing a coin. "Meeting's over," she said. That was the moment. Fight or fold. My chest buzzed like poor cell service. I heard Mom's concentrator breathing soft behind me. I saw Asha's dad's knuckles go pale on the table edge. I picked up the baggie with the red meter seal, held it up, and said, "This was on my breaker. I have a police report and video. If anyone touches my house again, I promise there will be criminal charges." The sheriff cruiser rolled up slow. Deputy Sosa stepped out, hand resting near his belt. Eyebrows tilted in that "here we go" angle. Karen pivoted to him like a plant to sunlight. "Officer, disperse this illegal gathering and confiscate the equipment." He looked at the chalk rockets, the folding chairs, my mom and her blanket. "Ma'am, this looks like neighbors talking. HOA rules," she insisted. "HOA rules don't outrank the First Amendment," he said mildly. He nodded at me. "Everything okay?" I handed him copies of the statute and the deed. "Utilities tampered," I said quietly. "Report filed." He read. Eyebrows doing the thing again. "I'll be back," he told Karen, and left with the copies. Receipts. Drop 7. The minute his taillights turned the corner, I hit play on a backup. The crowd clapped like varsity stole the ball. Asha produced a spare HDMI from her robotics kit. Bless that kid. Next slide an expense spreadsheet. Security consulting checks made out to Whitmore Solutions, LLC, Karen's husband's company. Monthly. I'd found them in a public Dropbox the HOA never locked. "No hacking, just clicking. That's proprietary," Karen snapped, putting her hand on my laptop. Aisha's dad stepped in, quiet and solid as granite. "Please back up," he said gently. Or what she said. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Power flips don't always crackle. Sometimes they seep through seams like rain. Maya from the council cleared her throat. "Residents. The city is concerned about unlicensed enforcement and the use of surveillance without a public vote. The council invites you to a hearing on Thursday at 5 p.m. She looked at me. Tiny nod. "You did your homework, kid." Neighbors found their voices. Mrs. Nguyen raised her hand like a student. "They fined me for a wind chime," she said. "Said it was a hazard to migratory birds. The baseball coach said they towed his brother's pickup while he unloaded lumber." A widow murmured that Karen rejected her succulents for not being regionally coherent. Asha's mom explained the Polos tried to measure her backyard while the baby napped. "We all signed the covenants," Karen said, voice stretched thin. "Standards protect value. Mr. Torres, my kidest neighbor, cleared his throat. We signed fairness," he said. "Not this." Then the last receipt landed. Officer Tran returned. Not alone. The utility field supervisor hard hat. Clipboard, walked straight to our meter panel. Crouched. Snapped a photo. And held up an identical red seal. "This device isn't ours," he said to the crowd. "Placing it is interference with municipal service. That is a crime." He gave the deputy a form. A woman with a county lanyard stepped forward. "We reviewed public payouts," she said. "Mrs. Whitmore. Explain payments to Whitmore Solutions without competitive bid or member vote." Karen's mouth opened. Closed. "This is defamation," she said, pointing at my garage like the wall insulted her. The county investigator flipped a page. "We have bank copies," she said. "And the drop box your manager forgot to secure." The tiniest smile. Deputy Sosa gestured gently. "Mrs. Whitmore, will you come answer a few questions?" No cuffs. The crowd parted. Phones rose. Not many. Even tyrants look small when the air leaves their balloon. Karen paused by my mom. "This isn't over," she hissed. Mom looked up with the patience of a nurse who did night shifts for 15 years. "Oh, Misha," she said softly. "For you it is." Thursday's hearing lived in a beige room with flickering lights and coffee that tasted like a timeout. But it was public, and that mattered. Councilwoman Shore read findings Larkspur Lane is public. HOA citations and tows on that road are void. Unlicensed security prohibited. Camera equipment with plate readers removed and held pending DA review. The Emergency Powers Clause suspended pending bylaw reform. My ramp approved. Not because anyone liked its vibe, but because law and decency said so. The board, minus Karen, voted to rescind fines tied to aesthetic discretion. Refunds to follow. A special election scheduled for the second Tuesday of next month. I didn't run. I offered coffee and chairs and a promise to show my receipts if anyone tried games again. Aftermath with teeth. The DA filed charges for interference with utility service and misuse of funds. Whitmore Solutions paid back 3 years of consulting. A civil suit sprouted class action. Several neighbors as co-plaintiffs. A settlement required the HOA to establish an accessibility fund and to hire a real management company that, reads laws. $5,000 earmarked for ramps and lifts this year. Automatic renewal baked into the budget. I rebuilt the ramp in cedar and sealed the grain so it glows at sunset. Asha measured angles with a blue machinist square from her robotics kit. We bolted a small bronze plaque into the rail. Elena's Way installed July 20th to honor a mother's stubborn grace. Mom cried. The good kind. Then made arroz con pollo for half the block. Even Mrs. Nguyen's wind chime sounded brighter. Like someone cleaned the air. You want the messy truth. Things didn't snap into perfect. Karen's friends, the few, were salty for a while. There's people who hate losing power more than they hate doing wrong. Some apologized with casseroles. I accepted. Because spite doesn't feed anyone. Some avoided eye contact. That's their homework. Not mine. The new board met in the clubhouse, and I walked in with a small stack of papers, statutes, deed copies, the utility letter, the minutes, everything I'd carried, like armor. I distributed one set to each person. Transparency, I said. Keep copies. Don't lock them in one drawer. We drafted standing rules with plain language. Numbers written in words. Deadlines in words. A requirement that any fine include the exact bylaw citation, page, and paragraph. A mandate that accessibility modifications are presumed approved unless a safety professional says otherwise in writing. And any security purchase over $1,000 requires member vote. Simple stuff that should have been obvious. Receipts. Drop 8. The signed policy packet. With wet signatures from the board and a scanned stamp from the city accessibility office that said, in Kinder font, reviewed. I pinned the packet inside the clubhouse so nobody could pretend they never saw it. We also set up a quarterly walk and talk neighbors, stroll the block with coffee and a clipboard. Not to tattle, but to help. If someone's lawn needs love, We bring a hose and some seed. If a mailbox leans, someone brings a level. Weirdly radical concept, helping each other instead of finding each other. A month later, Karen drove by in a different car. Windows up. She didn't wave. I didn't either. Consequences were doing their slow work. The DA moved, the county moved, these things. Like Officer Tran said, take the time they take. The Whitmore house put up a for sale sign printed all elegant. The kind that pretends it isn't begging. In the gaps, life kept happening. I installed solar on the roof and a battery in the garage. Not because I think Karen would crawl out at midnight with pliers, though. I'm not tempting fate, but because sleep comes easier, knowing Mom's oxygen keeps humming, even if the grid hiccups. Aisha got accepted into a summer health program. We built her a little study nook under her stairs out of leftover cedar. She hung a poster that said, "Receipts or it didn't happen." I'm not saying she's my favorite neighbor. But, yeah, one evening, the new board hosted a town hall. We projected the budget on the clubhouse wall. People asked real questions. Nobody yelled. The only time the room got spicy was when someone suggested banning front yard gardens. Mrs. Nguyen raised her hand, very politely, and said, "I grow herbs that every auntie in this cul-de-sac uses. Try me." Everyone laughed. Nervous and relieved, the motion died without a second. Receipts. Drop 9. I printed the monthly ledger vendors. Amounts in words. Purpose in plain English. And paperclipped it to a corkboard. Also posted the same file in a locked online folder with view-only permissions. Learned that trick the hard way. Then a curveball. A letter from Karen's lawyer arrived, addressed to me personally. Cease and desist defamation. It said, delete slanderous postings. Okay. I hadn't posted anything but meeting dates and statutes. Still, I scanned it and replied like I was writing a postcard from Comtown. Receipts. Drop 10. My response. 1 page. Words measured like teaspoons. Please specify statements you allege are false. My postings link to public records and statutes. Everything else is opinion based on disclosed facts. I CC'd the DA's office and the HOA council. The letter never wrote back. But her last move wasn't legal. It was personal, a fundraiser in the park labeled Neighborhood Healing. Cute flyers. Pastel colors. No mention of accountability. You ever notice how some people jump straight to the forgiveness part without doing the fixing part? I went anyway. With Mom. We ate dry cupcakes and listened to a guy with a guitar sing songs about bridges and sunshine. Karen didn't show. Her friends did. Though. Hovering like drone, one approached my mom and said, "You people brought a lot of drama." She meant newcomers. She meant us. Mom smiled. The kind of smile that could lift a room or flatten a bully. We brought air, she said, touching her oxygen line. That's all. The woman reddened and moved away. I ain't proud to say, I felt a tiny flash of victory. Later that week, Deputy Sosa stopped by on a Sunday with a paper plate of sweet corn from a cookout. He nodded toward the cedar ramp. Looks good, he said. Any trouble since quieter? I said. Thank you. He shrugged. I mostly watched y'all fix it yourselves. He looked weirdly proud. Like being a good neighbor was part of the badge. If you need the moral in big block letters, an HOA isn't really about paint chips. It's about power, who gets to speak. Whose ramp counts as ugly or quaint. Who decides what uniform means. And who pays when somebody confuses their title for a crown? Laws help. Neighbors help more. Receipts help the most. So here's my final ladder of receipts. Just to put a bow on it, a blue folder labeled just in case. Stuffed with the ADA sheet. The city permit. The pulmonologist letter. And every fine printed in words. A thumb drive with ring clips the padlock. The sticker. The red seal. The polos measuring the air like it offended them. A baggie with the actual red seal. The utility supervisor's letter. The police report number written in black Sharpie on the plastic. The county deed for Larkspur Lane with the dedication clause circled in blue pen. The spreadsheet of security consulting checks to Whitmore Solutions, and the city minutes where 0 votes authorized that nonsense. The new board's policy packet with signatures in real ink and the accessibility fund spelled out in, like, kindergarten English. A bronze plaque on a cedar rail that reads, Elena's Way. Some nights, I sit on the steps and listen to the wind chimes. Aisha's little brother draws chalk rockets under the mailbox. The rockets have stars now. The oxygen hums its small hymn. You can feel when a place exhales. The cul-de-sac doesn't flinch when a car turns in. The lawns look imperfect in a way that means people actually live there. The rules are still rules. But they're human. With elbows and laughter. Karen, she's a ghost story now. A tale people tell new residents when they warn them not to skip meetings. Once there was a president who thought emergency powers meant anything she wanted. They say. Then a son pointed a projector at the garage, and the law at the nonsense. And well, here we are. If this happened to you, if someone tried to turn your oxygen into leverage, would you fight? Would you fold? Or would you? Wheel a projector onto your driveway and let the truth do the yelling. Be honest. What would you do here?